Hello, everyone. Welcome today. We are just kicking off our webinar with the Motive team. We're going to give everyone a second to get in here, but we are super excited to have all of you today. Our topic of conversation is how to crush quota in 2024, which is a little play on the words of, crushing quota. We always hear about it. We're going to actually talk about it. How do we hit quota? How do we hit our number? How do we approach a big number that's really scary? And how do we break it down into digestible chunks? So lots of good stuff in store. We have 3 incredible panelists for you. Again, we're going to give everybody about a minute or two just to jump in with us. But if you're here now, if you can jump in the chat, let us know who you are. Let us know where you're joining from. Let us know, what role you're in so we know who the audience is and who's out there, and we can maybe tailor some of our questions around that. Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. We are so excited to have you. So today's session is co-sponsored by Motive and Women in Sales. And so real quick here at the top, my name is Alexine Moudouar. I am CEO of Women in Sales. We are a member-based organization focused solely on helping women find success in the field of sales. We support thousands of members from every stage of their career, from entry level all the way up to C-suite. And we do so by providing educational content and webinars and events, all in the way of making you find a better career in sales and keeping you in sales and keeping you happy. So I am joined here today again by Team Motive. So I'm going to kick to Ellie from the Motive team to just briefly introduce who Motive is and tell us a little bit.
Thanks, Lexine. A little bit about Motive. We build hardware and software to make the work of our customers safer, more productive, and more profitable. We're the only solution that allows safety, operations, and finance teams to manage their drivers, vehicles, equipment, fleet-related spend, all in one single integrated platform, and the only company leveraging our AI-powered automation and incident detection. Our customers tell us they see 50% reduction in accidents, 35% less time spent on manual process, and even more after implementing our solutions.
Amazing. And Motive has actually been a partner to Women in Sales for the last year. So we're really happy to have them and happy to have this team today. To start out, would love to just do a round of introductions as well. So Chelsea, let's start with you, and then Nicole and Ellie will wrap with you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, about your journey in sales, and let everyone get to know you.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. My name is Chelsea. I am mid-market premier principal sales development rep here at Motive. I've been with Motive for almost 2 years. I had I coached women's basketball. That was my background before I started working with Motive. But so far, again, just been here trying to be the best sales development rep I could be, and helping Motive be profitable. So I'm excited to be here with you all, and thank you all for joining.
Amazing.
Thanks, everyone. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole. I'm an enterprise rep here at Motive. Recently, actually just moved up to the enterprise organization from mid-market. Actually worked directly with Chelsea. Her and I were partners for a decent amount of time. I've been here for a little over 15 months now, and prior to Motive, I worked in the logistics and supply chain space for most of my career. Got into sales, really working as an SME, so subject matter expert on what I'd like to call the Uber pool of freight. So worked very closely with sales reps and really just loved, going with them, tagging along with them to help sell and co-sell, and then decide to jump over and join the sales world. So anyways, excited to be here. Excited to go through some of the stuff that we're going to go through today.
Amazing. Ellie, over to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I am a regional sales manager for our mid-market team over here at Motive. I just celebrated 5 years, which feels really crazy. Before this, I actually worked at one of our enterprise customers companies, and I used our free app at the time, which is how I knew about Keep Truckin', which is now Motive. So that's kind of how I got my foot in the door here and really started my sales journey at Motive. Got an opportunity to wear a lot of different hats. I started as an SDR. Led an SDR team, and then went to the account executive role, and then have my own team of account executives that I work with now.
Amazing. Well, thank you all for being here. What's going to be really cool about this conversation is we have 3 women who are incredible at their jobs, many of which were recently promoted and at all different career levels. So we're going to get perspectives on how they approached crushing quota, how they approached tackling their year, and we're going to dive right in. So thank you again, everyone who's joining us. If you have questions throughout today's conversation, please post those under the Q&A tab. If you put them in chat, we're going to kind of lose them and we don't want to. So just add any questions in the Q&A tab and we're going to try to hit those towards the end of the conversation. And a little sneak peek, because if you are a job seeker, I believe that Motive is hiring for a lot of different roles, and we will touch on that at the end of this event too. And we have some of the recruiting team in the chat as well. So stay tuned, more to come. But just to kick things off, let's start where a lot of us are today. We just got our quota for the year. It often is a really scary number when you first glance at it. And it's kind of one of those moments where you feel like you just restarted the game again, like you just finished the drawing board, it just erased and started over again. So let's talk about how you get organized. How do you approach your year? What do you do when you get your quota? What's your plan of attack? Just kind of take us through the thought process. So Chelsea, let's start with you for this one.
Okay, awesome. Yes. So what you said was correct. Organization is the key. You have your quota. You know what the expectations are. The one thing that I will look at is setting goals, setting daily and weekly goals. Don't set monthly goals because don't look at the end. Look at where you are now and what you need to accomplish what you need to do to accomplish things in the end. So those weekly and daily goals are important to set with your manager or your leadership. Also, as Nicole said, me and her have worked together before, but I think one of the huge things are getting with your account executive and prioritizing accounts, seeing what accounts that you all need to hit, how you need to hit those, as we call it, low-hanging fruit. See if we have any of those low-hanging fruit accounts that we can go ahead and start prioritizing. And then lastly, utilize the tools, utilize resources that are provided to you from your company. That actually, in my opinion, helps you be more efficient, which in return, you'll be more effective.
Amazing. Yes. Well, awesome. Let's pass to Nicole. You just got your number for the year, probably pretty recently. What's your thought process? How do you tackle it? What are you thinking about right now? Let's hear all of it.
Yeah, I mean, so I think to piggyback off a little bit of what Chelsea was saying, right? I mean, staying organized is key. Structuring the days with blocks of time for outbounding and preserving time for, customer management or customer account related things. But I think ultimately, right, I mean, granted, we try and close as much as we can in the previous year, but of course, there's going to be some rollovers, right? And so I think with that, I'm starting with what I call, closest to the finish line, right? And seeing what's looking optimistic and how we can get in some of those quick wins right off the bat to help offset some of that stress that might come with the quota, right? How can I tackle that immediately? But I think after that, it's important to build out that pipeline and really have that be extremely heavy, right? So that there's wiggle room in the off chance, right? Something might not be or look as promising as it might seem. So I think, ultimately doing that allows for you to kick off the year first couple months, whether it's first, couple months or January or the first quarter, and really tackle the rest of the year.
Love that. I love that you called it closest to the finish line deals. I've never used that before, but I like that. I might take that. Ellie, what about you? What are you thinking about? How are you approaching your year?
Yeah, I mean, I think January, I think New Year, I think about resolutions, I think about cleaning up shop. So I think Nicole kind of touched on this a little bit, but really cleaning out your pipeline. What is true opportunity that we have here? Let's start a fresh slate. Let's see what we have and let's see what gaps we have to get there. I think that's really important. And I think, as they both said, very eloquently, of being organized, have a way that works for you. I think that was a big part of my success as an AE is I wasn't probably the best pin caller out there, but I was sure as well organized as anyone else on the team. So finding out a process that works for you and sticking to that.
Love it. Yes. Incredibly important. If you decide to go the solopreneur route, spoiler alert, you're also going to have a quota. You just said it yourself, and you're still going to have to approach your year the same way. So these are incredible insights. Thank you all. For where we're going to head next is I really want to talk about, one of the big questions that comes up for our community and women in sales is when you get this big list of accounts. I mean, some of our members are getting hundreds of accounts a year. Some of them are getting thousands. I know I've had a book that's 2,000 plus accounts. What do you even do? How do you start organizing that list? Do you do some type of tiering system? Do you break down by vertical? Just to kind of figure out how you're going to actually make a plan of attack for the specific accounts that you're going to be going after. So for this one, let's start with you, Ellie, and then we'll kind of pass around here.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, when I was an AE, I would use this kind of crazy spreadsheet that I created. That was, how I color coded it. I said, hey, these are my tier 1, 2, and 3. We have come a long way in our resources and tools. So we have a lot of this in our CRM now to where we can tier out our accounts. So we had a big initiative January 1 for our segment to say, hey, we're going to tier out all of our prospecting accounts. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here's a list of things that you might look for in a tier 1 account. If they have at least 4 or more of these qualities, mark them as a tier 1. I'm really just having a playbook of what is 1, 2, 3, and 4, and why should they be a tier 1 versus a tier 4. That will also, change how you attack that account. So you're going to spend a lot more time on your tier 1 accounts because there's a lot better opportunity there. Versus a tier 4 account, you might have a more automated cadence or sequence that's going out to them. So spending your time, where the money is, and as far as like other data that you're looking for, we have some really cool prospecting dashboards that we've built out for our teams where it's, organized by, hey, these folks have been recently using our free app, or these folks are, construction accounts. We have a lot of construction companies we're currently working with. So thinking about your deals that you've sold and the stories that you can go tell, hey, I just closed a deal with a construction company. Here's what they were facing. Here's how we helped them to get your foot in the door.
I love that. I love the idea of just riding the wave of a previous success. And it's like, we clearly just closed an exact account in this demographic. And like, now we can kind of copy paste the approach and go after those companies and prioritize them. I think that's awesome. Nicole, what about you?
Similar to Ellie, it's funny. That's how I work as well. A little bit of the type A OCD comes out, right? So I really like to color code my list and organize it in my own version of tiers, more or less, right? Red, yellow, green being where, I want to focus a lot of my efforts and time. Maybe I got off a call with somebody the day prior or just now, and it's super optimistic. There's definitely an opportunity that could happen this year, versus red, where, it's not the right time, budget, contract restrictions, what have you. And so, taking time to sort of, tier it out or break it out that way is really helpful to make sure that I'm, from a time management perspective, focusing my time where I should be. I don't typically break it down so much by vertical. What I'll try to do is make it a specific, like event based. So we, in the enterprise world, have a lot of cool and exciting events coming up. So get to revolve it around that. I think another thing too that's unique about Motive and what I actually really love is how we're, geographically and locally set up with our customers. So if I'm planning to visit Alexine in Chicago or something, I'll make like an event around that or reach out to those that are in the area. And so that's typically how I'll sort of organize my account list and how I'll do that sort of outreach for the year.
Amazing. Getting ideas. Cool. Chelsea, what about you?
Nicole is definitely right in our OCD, but I tell you, it definitely helps with the SDR and the AE relationship on organizing the accounts. Coming from an SDR perspective, the way I've broken our account list down, definitely the tiering has helped in the past. Tiers 1, 2, 3, and 4. You want to focus on those tier 1s. But kind of what I've used also in the past was filtering accounts out by those statuses, seeing, what accounts do we need to re-engage now? What accounts do we have good conversations with in the past? And then you might want to filter in some stale accounts. What accounts have we not talked to in the past 30 or maybe 90 days? Different hot lists you can make to try to organize an approach for the year to give you different options.
Yeah, Yep. And Hania added graveyard accounts. Yes. I love the graveyard. The graveyard is where all the fun stuff happens in there. And you never know, there's a deal from a couple quarters back, a year back, and you just re-engage at the right time and they come right back in the funnel. So that's amazing. Chelsea, I have a bonus question for you if you're willing to take it. Okay, let's do it. So when you're thinking about accounts, so with you, you're working with AEs directly. And so you're obviously going after the same list ideally, or you have overlap with your list. Do you ever kind of like go after the same accounts simultaneously? Do you do like a top to bottom where like you're taking certain levels of contacts and the AEs taking another subset of contacts? Or I'm just curious because I know we have a mix of both SDRs and AEs in the audience. So I'd love to hear your perspective on how you kind of divvy out and go after certain contact levels even.
Absolutely. Like I said, organization is the key. So when we meet as a pair, the first question is how we're going to attack those accounts. I've had account executives that say, hey, I'll work on these 10, you work on these 10. And then once we complete those 10, we may flip it. And whatever 10 he or she was working on, I would work on. I've also worked with account executives that said, we'll work on the same account, but I'll call these contacts, you call these contacts. And we'll just communicate on our weekly syncs on, progress. And I've also had AEs make, spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets to where, like what Nicole said, if I see Nicole put a green, then I know that was a good account that had great conversation or, move forward on. So, it varies, but again, it's that relationship with your account executive and hitting the ground running with organizing and prioritizing.
Love that. And I love that level of collaboration too. That's so critical for AEs and SDRs as they're working together to remember that it's a partnership. This is not someone that is an employee of you as an AE. The SDR, you're not reporting directly to the AE, but you are a collaborative team. You're both working towards a collective goal. And when one of you wins, the other one hypothetically, ideally will win too. So love to hear some of that advice too. Thank you for taking one off the cuff there. So let's talk about quotas. As many of us know, and I asked the question in here earlier, I'm not sure if anybody responded, but I was like, did anybody get a little sticker shock when they saw their quota? Have we had those moments in the past where you just see a number? Much like some of you, I came from the enterprise space and spent over 10 years in enterprise sales. And so, you get like $1 million quota. It's a little scary. Like this is a scary number to see Jan 1. So would love to hear how you go about looking at a large quota and how you actually kind of break that down, what your thought process is, even what kind of mentality you keep behind it too, to keep you motivated, especially in that first quarter. I mean, you're not usually biting off like 800,000 out of $1 million, for example. So how do you kind of keep your mindset right? What do you focus on? How do you tackle it? How do you break it into chunks? So Nicole, let's start with you for this question, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, so like I mentioned, doing an introduction, I recently, ironically enough, for this question, just moved up to the enterprise world, right? So maybe that sticker shock, I can relate with that, I guess you can call it. But I think really the biggest thing is going to come from, first not freaking out and actually just looking at it and really understanding as you like map it all out that this actually isn't so scary. And this is how this can be accomplished, right? For me, right, personally, what I'm trying to do, obviously, first and foremost, like I mentioned before, really focusing on those that, hopefully can close and get wrapped up. Luckily enough, have a couple of those happening in February. But I think also with that, right, is focusing on bigger accounts, right, that might be able to help offset that huge quota, or rather not necessarily offset, but fill that quota, right? And I think that will really help to alleviate some of that. Nothing's going to happen overnight, especially, Alexian, it sounds like you came from enterprise for 10 years. This, it's not going to happen overnight. So starting that now, taking the time to build those relationships. So that way, come, the holidays later this year or something, you're maybe wrapping up a trial or wrapping up some of those discussions. So I really think it's, seeing what you can bite off from a larger standpoint. And then if there's nothing there, right, then trying to get a handful of the small ones to see where you can really, make up that quota.
Love it. Love it. Ellie, what about you? How do you think about this?
Yeah, I love the idea of kind of the bigger accounts. We call them whales in the mid-market space, of really going after those whales. There's a lot more opportunity there. Those are likely going to be your tier one accounts. For us in our space, it's more of a quarterly number that we're looking at. So not quite as much of $1 million sticker shock, but still, quotas are going up just about every quarter because we keep crushing them. So I think when you think about that, you have to think about what you can control, right? We can't control what that quota number is. That's based off the business. We got to go for the name on the front of the jersey, not the back, as my director likes to say. So putting that into play, think about what you can control. And almost every time when I'm talking to someone, and I might be getting ahead to a later question, but maybe you're having a down quarter, or you just feel overwhelmed, or you didn't hit last quarter. Think about what you can control. And almost always the answer to that is more pipeline. So go get some more pipeline in your funnel, and that will give you less stress every quarter, and focus on that top of funnel to help relieve some of that anxiety when quota comes across your plate.
Love it. Love it. As I always say, pipeline reigns queen. So yes, pipeline over everything. Pipeline is the solution to many of our problems, and also the thing that we love avoiding sometimes too. So this is awesome. Chelsea, what about you?
Not as so much in the enterprise world, but the way I would say it goes back to don't be afraid. I always say go back to the basics. You may have to switch up your previous strategy because it may not work it may not work as effectively as it did now that the quota is larger. But that doesn't mean panic. That just means, hey, let me make a hot list of accounts that I made notes that said re-engage, that said call me back, that said, hey, we'll be ready around this time. A lot of times, if you note taking and task setting are huge when trying to again attack large quotas, because you can say I talked to them, in the past. Now let me re-engage and see if I can move these forward. So definitely being organized in your notes and how you follow up, how you re-engage with different accounts.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. Yeah, and it's not so different, whether it's a monetary quota, whether it's a activities-based quota, like these are still big numbers that we all have to tackle in different ways. So love hearing the advice about how you go after those and how you think about approaching those. So this is amazing. Here is a fan favorite question that's coming. It's one that we all love talking about. So Chelsea, I'm going to go to you for this one because I feel like for whatever reason, SDRs always have the best ear to the ground for tech tools. Like when I have to get information or I'm sourcing a new tool for our organization, even I talk to my SDR friends often more than anything. So what systems and tools do you leverage most to help you hit your quota?
Right now, what I will say is I'll use a lot of like depth of pursuit. So I'll use Zoom Info, LinkedIn Sales Nav, 6 Sense, different tools to multi-thread contacts through each account. The more contacts you have on the accounts, the more answers, the more results you'll get. So I use those tools a lot in order to reach multiple people on accounts. I also use different metrics for my calls. So I tell people that I mentor, the name of the game is contacts. Are you talking to people? Who are you talking to? And then the talk time. Are you having meaningful conversations? Are you asking questions? Are you allowing them to ask questions? So those are things that throughout the year, I keep track of. And then again, the last thing is just going back to that organization, having color-coded calendars to where you can see, I always put my prospect meetings in green for the money, yellows for like callbacks, and then blue is just to organize some different meetings I have going on, but just to prioritize, and make sure that you're organized when going in different systems and tools.
This is amazing. Thank you for these recommendations. You also brought up a memory for me. I forgot. So when I was first starting out in sales, we used to do contests based not off number of calls, but we would do talk time contests. And that's something, so like we've totally gotten away from that, but I was like, wow, it's been years, but what a good call out. So thanks for taking us into a glimpse at your tech stack. I think the key takeaway there too is you're not working in like 30 or 40 tools on a daily basis. Like you have like a pretty finite number that you're focused on, that you're in every day, that you of course know really well. And I think that's really critical too, because especially whether you're an SDR, an AE, a sales leader, there is a plethora of tools out there and you can really get lost in the sheer quantity of those. So love to hear a very kind of focused, consolidated tech list. That's awesome. Nicole, what about you? What tools what are your favorites? What are you in every day? Take us behind the scenes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a different perspective on this question. I would say like the most important tool that I leverage is my network, whether that's here at the company or, externally. I think, so the obvious is, warm leads, right, are going to help give a leg up to help hit those high quotas. But really just, leveraging my like internal network and team members here at Motive, seeing, sort of doing like what I'd call is like copy paste, right? What's worked well and how can I copy paste that, right? Obviously there's LinkedIn, there's Sales Navigator, there's all of that. There's the spreadsheets Ellie and I are making, and to stay organized. But I really think it's really leveraging people, because people, like, Chelsea said, it's contacts, right? It's people that's going to get you to those contacts, going to increase the amount of talk time, right? Talk time is going to come from relationships naturally building, whether it's in person or on the phone. And so I think that's also, I think I mentioned this before, but something that I really do love about Motive, which is not so common in the industry, is the fact that we set things up localized, right? So being local to customers, if I'm, for instance, I live in New York City, but cover the Northeast. I'm actually from Long Island. So I'll go out to Long Island to visit my family, send a note to some folks and just get together with them. And I really just think like leveraging network both in and out of Motive has been really helpful just for, I guess, building relationships. But with that's going to come, crushing or hitting that quota.
Love it. Absolutely. Network over everything. Network is your net worth, as we say. So love that. Ellie, what about you?
Yeah, I'll kind of chime in on that piece. I think, our people are one of our most important resources. I love all the sales tools that we have. Zoom Info is one I use pretty much every day to get that multi-threaded approach, make sure we're adding new contacts, from top of funnel. And then once we're in a deal, we talked a lot about this in our sales kickoff with our organization of winning together. You can't win as well when you're by yourself. And so leveraging things like your sales engineer, your manager, your peer, maybe there's someone in a different segment. Maybe Nicole has some insight from enterprise with the deal that she went on site for and how to run that on site, what worked well. Like she said, working smarter, not always harder, of, hey, can we replicate that? Can we use that in another deal? Is there a similar case story? Maybe, they don't have time to trial. Does someone have a reference that we can use? Things like that we can leverage internally to help each other win.
Absolutely. Yes. Some great advice here. You got a little bit of the actual tools. You got an idea about network. So yeah, it's incredibly critical to have those connections, because to your point, sometimes what we talked about earlier, sometimes a deal doesn't close and it doesn't make sense often to just like get rid of that contact. It's better just to like kind of nurture those, keep those warm. You never know when they're going to come back around. You never know when some of those contacts are going to make introductions at other accounts. So it's so important and so critical in sales to keep and hone those relationships, because you truly never know when they'll come back to find you. So that's amazing. One of the other questions that I actually pulled from many of our community members that's been really, really top of mind for women in sales in particular is we've all had a bad month. We've all had a bad quarter, even a year. We have a lot of members who are kind of struggling. Like they came off of a bad 2022 or a bad 2021 even, and it kind of knocks the wind out of you a little bit. And it's hard to recover and come back from that and like get your kind of mental state right for that. So how do you keep focused and course correct after any type of setbacks, whether it's a bad month, a bad day, a bad year, a bad quarter? So for this question, let's start with you, Ellie, but would love to hear your perspective on this because it's really critical to our members.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to this one. Something that comes back to me is I came back from maternity leave with my second kiddo back into this role of, January of last year. And we had a pretty good, first quarter, I was just jumping back into things. It was fine. And then second quarter, we really had a big dip as a team. And my confidence just went to the bottom floor. I felt like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, should I be in this role? Really questioning that and feeling like, I think we've all related to where it feels like our worth is in our sales and our number. That is not true. But feeling really down and, like my confidence just wasn't there. And so I worked a lot with my manager on this of, jumping on calls with my reps and remembering how to sell and knowing I have been successful in this role and leaning on past successes to help build, that mental confidence piece. And then the second part I would say is just controlling what you control on a daily basis. Another time I struggled was also coming back from maternity leave as an AE. And, it was hard to get the phone and start prospecting and, I had a baby at home. It was just total chaos and, just focusing on what I can control. So let me quit out of my Slack. Let me quit out of my email. Let me dedicate this hour and a half to only cold calls and nothing else. And knowing that is ultimately going to get me to where I need to do. So I would say, focus on what you can control and then remember, successes that you have and that you've built on in the past and build on those for your future success because you will have a dip. If you haven't already, you will have it at some point.
Yes, truly so, especially if you chose a career in sales, which all of us did. So thank you. I love that advice. And thank you for the vulnerability too, because it's so important to share those experiences and let other people understand too, like these feelings you're feeling, you're not alone in them. Like often we're facing many of the same challenges. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, Ellie. Nicole, what about you?
I think similar to Ellie, right? I mean, you have to force yourself it's like fake it till you make it, right? You have to force yourself to not react as negatively, right? So I think the biggest thing is like having these like internal conversations with yourself to understand it happens, right? There's going to be a lot of things out of your control. And I think the biggest thing is like staying focused on what you can control and the rest will follow. I think also, as a seller, right, having a bad month or a quarter or a year, that's never fun for obvious reasons, right? But I think what's important to remember is that it should be used as a way to learn and grow. And sort of reflect on, I think Ellie mentioned this, right? Just reflect on it and see how, like what went wrong. So actually taking a moment to not run away from what happened, but actually like stand in front of it and really like look at it. I think also what might be able to like help avoid that or like what you can learn from. And so, similar to, Ellie coming from the enterprise world, we used to have quarterly quotas, half year quotas, what have you, right? Things were different. So there's going to be things that dip for a lot of things that actually are out of your control, but that's never going to be fun because you have a number to hit, right? So I think one thing that I did learn to do more often than I was is just is sort of like being proactive with the customers and reiterating timeline, decisions, processes, and things like that. I think ultimately you get on a call and they're like, we're looking to make a decision in Q1, and then you don't revisit it. And then Q1's approaching the end of it. And that's where that could happen, right? That slip up. And so just like reiterating what you heard from them as it stands for timelines or anything like that can help to avoid that as much as you can, right? You can only do so much with what you can control. So yeah, I think ultimately it's just, like if you have the mentality that it's going to happen and you can learn from it, I think that's how you can mitigate it year over year, quarter over quarter.
Love it. Yes. Very good advice. Chelsea, what about you? What would you add here?
I would add, unfortunately, in sales, life doesn't stop. There's life, as the saying, life be lifing at times. So I had a similar situation. I had a personal death in the family that happened at the end of Q1 last year. And I had to hit the reset button. But the one thing that kept me going was, one, get involved. You work with, we look at here at Motive. The one thing that I really enjoy about Motive, we're a team. You have other people that you work with who you can get involved with and speak your problems, speak your issues, see what they're doing, and try to grow from your teammates. Also, and we've mentioned it multiple times, I think Ellie just mentioned it, go back to the basics. dive into more training. You know, we have things called lessonlies. Get some more product knowledge, you know, see what you didn't do well, you know, when you didn't do as well as you thought, and go and go and increase your knowledge on that aspect of it. But I do think that just being more involved, join some different groups. I always say be solution oriented. You know, don't be the one to, you know, say, hey, I don't want to, you know, sync up with her because she complains. You know, be solution and join people that are solution based to try to help you, you know, get through those tough times.
Yes, yes. And yeah, I love that. Life be lifing. I feel like that's a t-shirt. I think you gotta quote that and get that in a t-shirt. There was a really good comment that showed up in the chat, and it said, Ellie, your cold calling, knowing that it will ultimately move things forward, makes me think of packing a house for moving. Seems impossible till it's done, but if you force yourself to keep putting things in boxes, eventually everything will be packed. So I love that. And that's a really cool comment.
And moving never gets easier, and cold calling never gets easier.
Yeah.
So I like that metaphor a lot.
That's true. Yeah. And it's always going to be part of our lives as sellers. So there's no hiding from it. Amazing. Well, we have actually got a ton of Q&A questions that come in. So I was thinking maybe we'll port over, do a couple Q&A questions because our last few questions are kind of future thinking. So I'd love to actually end on that note. So let's take a look at some of these Q&As. What I'm going to do is actually pop them onto the main screen here. And then whoever feels comfortable answering can do so. I think, Ellie, this first question was off of what you said. So someone asked, so Hania asked, someone said to focus on the name of the name on the front of the jersey and not the back. And they just were curious what this means.
Yeah. So, you know, in sports, typically you are a football fan, you know, usually you've got, let's say Tennessee Vols, that's my team. You've got Tennessee on the front, but you might have, you know, a different name on the back. So who's our quarterback? Nico. So you've got Nico on the back, but Nico is playing for the Vols. He's not playing just for himself. He's playing for the whole team and the whole team's success. A lot of us in sales at tech companies, maybe we have a vested interest in the business. We've got equity, we've got stocks. We hope to go public someday. Maybe you already are public, you've got some stocks. So ultimately you're playing for that team. They have hired you. You probably have a salary with them. You are on their team and you're playing to win for their team. And so, you know, that's what I think about of playing for the name on the front of the jersey versus just me, and trying to sell and do this all by myself. We win when we win together.
God, what a great explanation. Thank you. I also hadn't heard that phrase before. So, so thank you for expanding on it. But yes. And I was like, I don't usually understand sports analogies. So that's a me issue, but, well, cool. So the next question we have, let me pop this onto the stage. If anybody has an answer for this, if not, I can add a thought here, but have you worked at any point during your career? It doesn't have to be at your current role, in a space where you don't have access to a lot of tools. You know, you maybe don't have access to a Zoom info or some kind of resource to actually source data from. And if so, like, how did you still go after your account list? How did you kind of go about that? Does anyone have any ideas?
I mean, I think a immediate thought comes to mind. While I haven't had that direct experience, but if I, you know, didn't have a CRM or any sort of tool or system, it really goes back to just like people and your like own personal network. I mean, that's the extent of what you could do, right? Is you have a company and you use Google and you don't see who's there and what role they're in. And I think there is actually a way to just like look up somebody and then click them on LinkedIn. So you might be able to see if LinkedIn you have, you know, but I really think it's just people to people in that sense, right? If you don't have like an actual system to systematically, right, link people up and see how you could reach out to those folks.
100%. Yeah, that's exactly where I would have gone with this too. It's all about people, and LinkedIn, that's a free resource for the most part. So if you can leverage LinkedIn, if you can leverage LinkedIn to make connections, who then can make other connections for you, it always goes back to the people. That's where the success stories stem from. So great answer. Another question that came through, which I think is a good question too, let me pop this onto the stage, is does anyone have advice, perspective, experience stories of handling constant objections and not being afraid to push back on the objection versus just kind of letting it go? So I feel like for this one, this might be like Chelsea, especially you being on the front lines. This might be something that's in your scope of view here. So let us know what you think if you have an answer for this.
Oh, absolutely. Well, don't be afraid of objections. The one thing that I look at is an objection. Sometimes it sounds like not right now. You didn't say no, you just said not right now, or maybe you just don't understand. What I'm calling for. But with objections, I look at it as a way of trying to educate. Have confidence. When you have confidence in your company, have confidence in what you're discussing, and look at it as, okay, well, maybe not right now, but how about we educate you so that when we do have another discussion, because I probably will call again, now we can have a conversation about what material I sent over, what research you've done since the last time. So don't look at rejection as, never ever. Just look at it, go into it with confidence and say, hey, maybe right now, maybe it's my job to educate this person.
And it's hardly ever a dead lead. It's hardly ever, there's always some opportunity. And so I think that's so critical to look at these as opportunities to maybe open a door. Maybe it's not a slam dunk right out the gates, if we're keeping with the basketball. But maybe there's an opportunity to have something a year from now. Maybe it's 2 years from now. So just keeping those doors open is so incredibly critical. There's one more question that came through that is from Brittany. So I'm going to pop Brittany's question up on the stage too. And I'll add a little nuance to this question too, because I think it could apply to any of you. But curious how outreach differs with cold accounts, currently working in a startup with no accounts or warm leads, or I assume no inbounds either. So basically, if you have, or even if you have a new account list and there's just been no historic progress made on it, what do you do? Where do you start? How do you reach out to those accounts? What advice would you give? And I'll just offer this to the group and whoever feels comfortable answering.
I think it's got to come with doing a ton of research, and just really, I think that question, brings to mind just really doing a lot of Googling, looking to see if there's been any interesting news articles, either about a particular, person at the company or about the company in general, and just trying to go that route. Obviously, like, no help with inbound and stuff like that is hard, but I think also then it's, sort of a little bit similar to like what Chelsea was saying, like doing a lot more educating to those respective people that you're reaching out to. But yeah, I really, that's, it's hard as it is to cold call and to do like a cold outreach, right? So as much of information that you can bring to that conversation will help make that, a little bit easier and break down maybe some of those barriers to speak with that person.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts on this one? Otherwise, we're going a different way.
I would say a lot of times when you have brand new, I agree with Nicole. Do your research, Google, type in the name of that company and see, some accomplishments, see what's important to them, so that you can go into that call with a purpose. Just like I said, when we call and, we're wanting to educate them, a lot of times we have to call and educate ourselves, so don't look at it as a sale. Say, hey, I'm looking to get information from you because I'm trying to learn about you guys. And the more and more you get feedback from how they operate, what's important to them, you may not get, again, that sale right then, but I guarantee if you come back around with the information that you were provided and you go in there with a purpose off of a new account, you'll get a little bit further.
Amazing. This is great advice. One of my favorite strategies to use too, especially if I don't have a relationship, if I don't know someone at the account, if someone can't introduce me, I love to just, if they have LinkedIn, if they're using it actively, I love to find a phrase or something that they use and actually use that as a subject line in my email and use it as a way of like, hey, I've already done my research. I'm literally using your words. So I remember there was someone years ago and they talked about like the war for talent on there. And then I made that my subject line and I got a call like a couple hours later. He's like, I never take cold messages. Like I saw you use my words, you read my piece. It was like, he did a blog post. So those are just such cool opportunities to actually connect with people too. And LinkedIn's become such an easy way to be able to create some familiarity with your prospects, even if you don't know someone there. Even you can look at their company page and see what their company page is talking about, what's top of mind, what new product releases they have. So there's tons of information out there, even if you don't have data tools, even if you don't have an in or an introduction. And yeah, so we're going to head in a different direction now. I really like this question because it's something that we've been talking about in Women in Sales, but it's also something I've been thinking about personally too. But would love to start with you, Nicole, for this one. But what is one thing that you did in 2023 to help you succeed that you're going to keep taking with you into 2024?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just pipeline. I know we touched on that a lot. It's been a common theme, but when I first joined Motive, which was, later in the year of, I guess, 2022, I remember, advice that my manager gave me, which is just, put in a lot of time up front, like the first 3 to 6 months with pipeline. And that should help, ease the rest of the year, right? So just, spending a lot more time on that. I think it just helps to then, figure out, like, going back to how I stayed organized, right? But what I'd be able to do then is know when to reach back out to those people and sort of revisit. So that way I'm not bothering them, but necessarily just remembering what they said about their timelines and their budget and their things that they have going on business needs wise. So I think really it's just pipeline. That's really it. Because I'm having stuff trickle in now. We're now entered in fully 2024, and that came from that outreach back then. So.
Amazing. Yeah. And it's so much easier to build that pipeline up front and ahead of time than to try to chase the ball like Q4 and try to build pipe and close it simultaneously, especially if you're an enterprise, game over for that. So yeah, this is great advice. Chelsea, what about you? What are you thinking about for this?
Well, I'm gonna take what Ellie said about the name. It's about the name on the front, not the back. I January, literally, of 2023, I made an effort to get more involved. I'm a team oriented person. I wanted to involve myself with more of my team, learn from them. Never wanted to be complacent. Wanted to continue to stay educated, to help be more successful throughout the year. And that kind of helped me. I of course I was able to be successful, but I always give credit to my team because we all are in this together and we all bounce things off of each other and we apply them, and that's what helps us be successful. So the one thing I would say was just being involved, making the effort of staying engaged, and wanting to continue to be a student of the game.
Love that. We definitely have a basketball thing happening here. We're gonna have that phrase. That phrase should have been like the title of the webinar, and then the basketball should have been like the promo here.
I love it. I agree.
Awesome. What about you, Ellie? Let's close out with you on this.
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea teed me up perfect for that one. I was going to talk about deal reviews. That was something that we started doing as a team and as an organization Q4 of last year. And just really staying tight to our deals, right? Where are there any gaps? Is there an opportunity for us to go on site? Where are we at in this, deal cycle? Is there another deal that someone else is working that we have an idea that we could bring to this one? To open forum like this where everyone prepares ahead of time. They have their 5 minutes on the panel. We've got our sales engineers, we've got our director, and all of our peers on there. And so it's a great way to collaborate and have an open forum to poke holes and see how we can get these deals in next month.
Oh, I love a deal review. I love a postmortem too, even though nobody likes postmortems. But it's so critical because that's the easiest way to share the learnings. It's the easiest way to gather ideas and different perspectives. Because while we think, often as the seller, we know what's best for a deal, there's usually things we haven't thought of or avenues we haven't considered. And so having those different perspectives, having like solutions engineering or leadership in there, having SDRs, AEs, and everybody's collaborating and brainstorming, it's so incredibly powerful. So very good call out there. As we wrap, which is crazy to think, we're just in the final minutes here. This time has absolutely flown by, and all three of you have been incredible. We are going to move into a final question, and then we'll have a few announcements at the end here. But I would love for our audience to be left with one piece of advice from each of you on how they can crush quota in 2024. So our little lightning round here. So whoever wants to go first, we're going to let you go in whatever order feels most natural.
I'll go ahead and grab it. One thing I want to leave you all with a quote. And success is built off inconvenience. Do more. Don't do just what's asked. You know, like I said, we all have a quota. Look at, of course, that's your goal, but look to achieve more. You know, don't just be complacent with just hitting quota. Involve yourself, and you have to sometimes inconvenience yourself. You may not be able just to clock out at that certain time. It may have to do a little work after, or you may have to do more just to help, you know, push that needle and get. But success is built off inconvenience.
Oh, so many good quotes. You like a quote book or something? God, you dropped so many good ones today. Thank you.
I'm a basketball coach.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, you have them ready. Okay, cool. I love that. That's a great quote. Nicole, I see you off mute, so let's go to you next, and then we'll end on Ellie.
Yeah, I don't have a fancy quote like Chelsea. She's got those tucked away. But I think the biggest thing is just leveraging your network, whatever that means to you, for you, given your circumstances. I'm sure there's people on here in all different types of companies, sizes of companies. So I think that's just the biggest thing you can do. You learn the most from people, right? Whether in or out of the organization. So that's what I would say is my big piece of advice.
Love it. Ellie, over to you. Take us home.
I'm really going to beat this sports analogy down with this one. But one of my AAs sent me a podcast last year, and it's really changed the way I think about coaching. And it talks a lot about, you know, a lot of times we expect people to just show up and play, you know, in a closing call, in a negotiation call, in a demo. And we don't do the coaching piece. It's like, hey, I can watch NFL all day, every day. I cannot go out there and play tomorrow. So what are we doing to actually coach and role play and practice and prep? And, you know, doing the hard work on the front end so that when we get to the playing field, we're ready to go when it's game time. So doing the prep, doing the role playing with your coach, with a peer, running through it before the call, I think can make a really big difference in the long run.
Amazing. Very well said. All right. Took it home with the sports analogies. I feel like I have so many new sports analogies to drop. So this is exciting too. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being wonderful panelists. We are going to close with a couple kind of different places in which people can connect. First and foremost, I would recommend for anybody that's here today, that's in the audience, please go on LinkedIn. Please connect with our three panelists here, Chelsea, Nicole, and Ellie. They're amazing. I think most of this crew is in our Women in Sales Slack community too, so show them some love. Yes, this event is being recorded, and yes, the replay will be enabled right after the event. So if you couldn't catch this live, or if you want to share this with your team, you can easily do so afterward. It's the exact same link that you used to register. And in addition to that, for Women in Sales on our side, if you're looking to get involved in our community and haven't yet, we have our Women in Sales Slack community, which is our main communication channel. I just dropped a link in. We have LinkedIn, where we drop a lot of our really fun events, where you see all the cool pictures, the big announcements. It's under the page Women in Sales, so very easy to find. And we have an Instagram under the same name as well. And Ellie, I'm going to move back over to you, because word on the street is that Motive is hiring big time, and we got a lot of job seekers. So let's make some magic happen.
Yes, we are hiring across all of our sales segments, all the way from SDR to AE roles, and a few leadership sales roles as well. So I think we've got some folks on our recruiting team on here as well, but come join us.
Yes. Anyone on the recruiting team? I think I actually have a link here if anyone hasn't shared it yet. Oh, Shannon's on it. Okay. So Shannon just dropped a note in the chat here, and it has a link to their careers page and all the open roles. And there are so many awesome positions. I feel like I've been reposting it at like midnight. I'll like randomly find it and repost it in our Slack community. So I'm like, there's so many good jobs at Motive right now. So interview for these, apply for these, take these roles, join an awesome team, get to be colleagues with Nicole, Chelsea, and Ellie. That's a win. And make sure to check out Motive after this. Make sure to find us on Slack and LinkedIn. And thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for your engagement, for your participation, for your conversation today. And thank you for being part of Women in Sales. And thank you, Chelsea, Nicole, and Ellie. You three are amazing.
Thank you.
Lexi.
Take care.